Hello everyone, my name is Michael SK and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry, Ray. And we are still in this very upside downish world where a lot of things are very, very weird and characters are acting more or less the same, but at the same time, different. Very hard to explain, but Rika died and ended up in this lovely world where things are just wacky. And things got really wacky in the last episode, where I think we got the infamous chair scene, where Rika just had enough of Sotoko's crap and just, she beat her up. She beat Sotoko up. I think the anime adaptation, which I had seen, like, many times prior to this, kind of was a lot crazier, but this was still good. You know, a little bit of, bullying fight back, if you will. But I think things might be turning around here. It seems like our main cast of characters want to help Rika out in some sort of way, at least making her feel included. But as we can read here, after refusing their suggestion that we all go home together, I left on my own. So she's not really wanting to go along with it right now. She still has a goal to achieve, and that is finding that fragment, finding her way to get in contact with Hanyu, or get Hanyu here so that they could depart in some sort of way. And that is the main goal. But at the same time, I don't think Rika is too... I don't think she wants to completely deny their request to, be a little bit more involved, create a somewhat of a club like what we're used to. It was Rika Furude's right, not mine, to enjoy going home with them. It wasn't something that's her name that she's going with here, by the way, could accept. What was I, anyway? I wondered if another ball could fly into my head like before. That was how this world's Rika Furude was possessed by me. So if I got hit again, would I vanish, and the pure Rika Furude who lives in this world return? If only I wasn't me. I wouldn't hesitate to take them up on their offer. This world truly was far sadder than the one I had come from. But this world had something all its own, and the opportunity to become a happy world in its own right. If I hadn't known about the other worlds, I wouldn't have been able to contain tears of joy at the mere premonition of happiness I might once again attain. Were these conflicting emotions those of this world's Rika Furude sleeping inside of me? Those emotions made me angry, and I blamed myself, asking why I had put their offer on hold and went home all alone. Yeah, it does seem like there's a really good opportunity for her to kind of just say fuck it to the worlds that she's come from, especially the one where she absolutely succeeded in, and enjoy the possibilities of this one, because it doesn't seem like there's a dead end here. There's just a lot of unknowns. My mother always immediately followed that up with a, "Do you have homework?" but not today. Her voice was vaguely cheerful and light. I wondered what it was. Did she want to surprise me in a good way? But I couldn't remember today being special. A person's expectations sometimes come out in their voices. For the time being, it felt okay to go poke my head in. I set down my things and headed for the kitchen. When I entered, my mother had already started on dinner, despite it being so early. She was in a good mood. I wonder if something nice happened. Every year at this time, with the Watanagashi festival approaching, she usually got more and more impatient with all the preparations and setup. Knowing all of that, my mother's good mood baffled and confused me. I asked if she needed something. When I did, she suggested something I had never heard even once in these 100 years. Now, we gotta be a little careful. I'm really on guard now that I'm thinking about it. The doctor character that's in this world, the one that we've never ever met before, he now knows a little bit of Rika's situation. She confided in him, and, well, yeah, no one's gonna fucking believe that shit, but at the same time, I worry, because remember chapter 3? Remember when Keiichi was kind of, going a little cuckoo? Well, Irie kind of acted in a similar way to how the doctor, Yamamoto, I think is his name, acted to Rika, because you don't want to set them off. You want them to believe that there's an ally. But at the same time, you really gotta jump on mental cases. I didn't like curry that much, but before these 100 years, meaning not me but Rika Furude, I think she might have liked it. I knew at least that my mother was trying to make her daughter happy and suggesting that she and Rika Furude, not I, make dinner together. I didn't like my mother that much, oh we know. She was prone to hysterics, and I hated how she always sounded like she was hunting you down when she talked. When she treated me so nicely, my reason for disliking her felt irrational. Wondering why my mother had a change of heart, I decided to go along with it so as not to hurt her feelings.
じゃあ、じゃがいもの皮を剥きましょうか。包丁でできる？危ないから皮剥き器を使いなさい。
I was actually rather good with a knife. I was so good that when I peeled daikon radishes, I could make a long strip of skin at the same time I sliced it. But there was no reason to damage my mother's pride by showing that her daughter could use knives better than her. I decided to make her look good for now. My mother had probably been using knives for a decade now, but I had been using them for many decades. There was an order of magnitudes difference between us, so I wanted to be proud of using a knife better than my mother. I wanted to brag about it, but that might have trampled over her feelings, her want to teach her daughter how to use a knife. Wonder what is planned for today, you know? Something obviously seems out of the ordinary, making food for old Pops here, but at the same time, I feel like something's up. Parents are supposed to live longer than their children, so children respect the things their parents have learned from having lived longer than them. But witches like me live longer than their parents and learn many more things. Still, I think I probably never learned what I really needed to. I mean, as long as I genuinely listened to my mother, she'd never get hysterical. If I didn't feel like respecting her as my senior in life, she wouldn't feel like she needed to act as one either. In the end, all that was left was a cold, uncomfortable relationship between parent and child. If I had acted more like a daughter and pretended to be an ignorant child when I needed to be, maybe my relationship with her would have been more peaceful like this. Basically, she was Rika Furude's mother, not the mother of the witch who had lived for 100 years. Thinking about it made it seem obvious that she would be cold to me.
ねえ、こうして煮えにくいものから順番にお鍋に入れていくのよ。
玉ねぎはいつ入れるの？
玉ねぎは煮すぎると溶けちゃうから最後でいいのよ。リカが頑張って切った玉ねぎだもんね。きっと美味しくなるわよ。
She is acting like very nice, just nice, genuinely nice. My mother smiled and she seemed very happy. Her smile was warm. I thought I had completely forgotten over these 100 years, but I remembered for less than a moment in time, my parents had to die in 1981. That fate was just unchangeable. And besides, we could never get along in the first place, so it didn't matter if they died. As thoughts like those overlapped, maybe my concern with my parents had waned. Our hearts had steadily lost their connection, and the situation had steadily worsened. Before now, I hadn't thought I could gain anything from this world. Not once did I think it would make me realize something like that. With a mother like this, maybe spending time with her would be warm. It would be fun. That's right. The reason I rejected my mother's warmth, maybe it was because I wanted to soften the sadness that I felt at her death. If I couldn't change the fate that she met in 1981, then she might as well hate me. Was that the idea at the root of it all? In this world, my mother had not died in 1981. She would stay here for a long time to come. I felt just a little jealous of Rika Furude, and I was stricken with the desire to return this world's me to her. This world was so different than my previous one. Keiichi wasn't here, Shion wasn't here, Hanyu wasn't here, but in exchange, Satoshi and my parents were here. There was no club, but there would be one soon. Sotoko wasn't my best friend, but she could be in the future. I could weigh my previous world and this one on the scales, but I wouldn't know which way it would tip. I decided to leave this decision up to Hanyu. Yes, my destiny was not mine alone. It was Hanyu's destiny too. Whichever I chose, I would have to talk to Hanyu before making my final decision. This multiple world concept was something I only had because Hanyu had lent me her power. If Hanyu had never given it to me, it would have been over from the very start. Takano would have sliced open my belly and that would have been it. And probably one of the characters would have lost their absolute shit and probably went on a little bit of a killing spree or killed themselves or something because, you know, we've seen it with Keiichi, we've seen it with Rena, we've seen it with Shion. We put the lid on the curry, so now it just had to simmer. My father returned in the meantime and really enjoyed seeing us making curry together. Then at my mother's suggestion, he set the table. In any normal 1981, he really hated it when my mother told him to do anything. But he wasn't troubled at all at the prospect in this world.
リカはみんなのお皿にご飯を盛り付けてちょうだい。できる？
できますです。
Of course I can do that, idiot, is something I had thought many times before. But this time I didn't. I opened the warm, steaming rice cooker and plated the rice. My mother brought the piping hot curry pot over and split it among everyone's plates.
おお、すごいね。リカが盛り付けたご飯に母さんが作ってくれたカレーか。美味しそうだ。
違うわよ。ねえ、カレーもリカと一緒に作ったのに。失礼なお父さんね。
Not to say that all parents are perfect or that Rika's parents were ever perfect or, you know, at the root of it all, absolutely, you know, stupid. But I think with everything that was going on in all the worlds that Rika really jumped into, with there always being Hinamizawa syndrome and this and that, it created a sense of stress and pressure. And obviously with the whole dam protest going on, I'm sure that there was something, you know, for them to participate in, you know, with them being one of the big three families here. So I just think it was a culmination of everything, and it just put stress on the relationships as parent to daughters. So now that a lot of that is not present, they can actually enjoy their lives. Stress is a huge problem. We all know it. We've all experienced it. So I don't want to say that they're bad or anything, but I gotta stick with my original opinions from chapters 7 and 8, but mostly 8 because it's what we saw in 8. Yeah, Rika's mother is fucking stupid. But it is nice to see a change of pace here. I peeled myself back. Furude Rika shouted that I wasn't needed, so I pulled back. I see we're just flip-flopping the names here. I withdrew inside Rika Furude, and she got to enjoy a family dinner from the bottom of her heart. When we saw the crooked potatoes, we all laughed pleasantly. I would never cut potatoes to be so ugly. But Rika Furude was still bad at this, so these things happened. When I used the same ingredients, the only thing curry tasted like was the curry powder from the store. And after 100 years with the same curry powder, it tasted the same no matter how you made it, but this particular curry tasted different. I cried at what Rika Furude had lost. No, at what I had lost. Rika Furude got to experience the warmth that she had once forgotten. I wondered if another ball would come flying and hit me in the head, and then I would pass out for a while, and upon waking again, I would be gone. Wasn't that the best possible happy ending? I was the stranger here. I thought this universe was the strange one from out of all the other parallel universes, but it was me. I was the stranger. Then what had that world been, the one I had reached after 100 years? Was its happiness that we'd all won, Keiichi, Rena, Mion, Sadako, Shion, and I? Was it all worth nothing? That wasn't true. Yeah, you're right. It was a radiant world, one that we had all won the right to live in after 100 years of learning to trust in each other. It was replete with a different kind of happiness than this one. Both shone brightly, and neither was better or worse than the other. Maybe in the end, most worlds weren't better or worse than the other. No, there were some really fucked ones. And I had brought this up in my discussion video. I'm sure there's like a whole bunch of worlds, a myriad of worlds of where like other characters just lose their fucking minds because Man, the extent of Hinamizawa syndrome, we've only, scratched the surface of what it could do to a person. I mean, we've seen some crazy shit, but at the same time, maybe it could affect other characters that we haven't seen it affect. What if it got to Keiichi's parents or any of the other adult characters in the game? I think I even brought up in my discussion video, what if Oishi-san actually got it? Because he's so distrustful of the Sonozaki family as is, he already has a little bit of angst there, ready to just explode. A lot of crazy shit could happen. So I'm sure there's like a lot of different possibilities. And in a way, I kind of like it when a game has all those possibilities, all those different worlds or timelines or whatever. I only lived in the extreme worlds, the ones where I struggled to see whether Takano killed me or not. So out of all the infinite universes, I had started to think of them as either right or wrong. But the multiverse wasn't simple enough to think of in binaries like that. Tomorrow's dinner might be steak or salted sari. It wasn't about which was right and which was wrong. In both of those worlds, I would spend a happy time eating dinner with family. What if my respective selves had been reversed during tonight's dinner? But that was an incredibly tasteless thing to ask. The real problem wasn't that big to begin with. Neither my last world nor this world was better than the other. I needed to accept that. I still didn't know where the fragment I needed to return to my world was. But what if I never knew, and the power of the crystal ball connecting me to Hanyu disappeared? I would disappear like the stranger I was and give this body back to Rika Furude. From her point of view, she would have to say that I had returned to my old world. Just as I once called this world a daydream, for Rika Furude, my old world was the real daydream. Her strange delusions of me would simply disappear along with it. Maybe it didn't really matter how to return to my original world. Which world would I decide was the original? Maybe that was really all this was about. We're confusing ourselves here. And with it, myself. After we finished eating, we cleaned up our places and started washing things. My father said that he had a meeting tonight and he was about to leave again.
リカ、ちょっと洗っててくれる？ちょっとお父さんにお話があるんで、続きをやっててね。
Oh, that sounds a little suspicious, but okay.
はいですよ。
I responded cheerfully as Rika Furude. But I had realized something slightly out of place. If she had something to talk to my father about, well, there were plenty of chances during dinner. But she made me wash the dishes so that they could talk amongst themselves. Let's go listen in. Rika just had to stay put and wash the dishes. But I couldn't suppress the curiosity that was welling up, and so snuck over, perfect, to the front door to listen in on what my parents were saying. My mother was the one talking. Her tone of voice was not a cheery one.
それで、
Ah, fuck.
山本先生が市内の大きな病院に相談してくれてるらしいの。
No. Holy shit. My worries had purpose.
先生がおっしゃるには、脳よりも心の方かもしれないって。
Jesus fucking Christ.
立派な先生がいらっしゃる病院だそうなの。
I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have asked. Yamamoto certainly had not promised to keep our discussion in the nurse's office to himself. As soon as I left, he'd probably called my parents and told them their daughter was ranting about nonsense. He probably explained it as my isolation at school wearing down on my mind and damaging my heart. Considering what I had told him, even that would be a consensuous interpretation.
リカに直接話はしたのか？
後で話すつもり。
Is this the first time of us seeing like a glimpse of our parents? Not that it really matters.
明日突然先生が来て、病院へ行きましょうじゃ、騙してるみたいだもの。でもね、あの子の気持ちを考えるとわかるの。仲の良かった友達だけが先に引っ越しちゃって、一人残されて。その気持ちを汲み取ってやればよかったのに。リカは、最初から引っ越ししたくないってずっと言ってた。その気持ちの整理も待たず、一方的に押さえつけてしまって。
山本先生は明日の何時にいらっしゃるんだ？
夕方って言ってたけど、時間は聞かなかったわ。できたらお父さんもいてほしいって。
ああ、夕方は集会所にいるが、 山本先生がいらっしゃったら呼んでくれ。
わかりました。
気を落とさずに。リカが元の世界に帰りたいと言い出す気持ちはよくわかるが、でも、もうどうしようもない。
Yeah, I can also see why that could be interpreted wrongly.
国と村とで決まってしまった話だ。ならせめて、Hinamizawaに住んでいたことを思い出すとき、楽しい思い出を真っ先に思い出せるようにしてやりたいな。
そうですね。
もう、時間だから行くぞ。リカのことを、頼む。
はい。い
Lovely.
ってらっしゃい。
I snuck back into the kitchen the same as I had come, but I think the floorboards must have creaked. When my mother returned to the kitchen, she still didn't sound particularly cheerful.
聞いてたの。今日ね、山本先生から電話をもらったわ。リカが山本先生に相談した話のことを教えてもらったの。
みー、勝手におしゃべりするなんて、山本はひどいやつなのです。
ごめんね。リカはずっとこの村に住んでいたかったのよね。その気持ちを考えず、だいぶ厳しい言葉をたくさんぶつけてしまった気がする。
いいのですよ。別に、そんなことは気にしてませんです。
My mother's apology was meant to be heard by the Rika Furude living in this world. It wasn't for me to accept, so I denied it. But my mother kept apologizing anyway. I was going to deny it again, but I stopped. It wasn't my turn. I should pull back. And then I thought I felt myself begin to fade out. As I did, I felt my eyes grow warm. The rest was, for me, a misty, hazy world. I cried as I buried my face in my mother's chest. And my mother cried as well as she hugged me. If I could have disappeared like that, this too might have been Rika Furude's life. After that, my mother told a lot of stories of Hinamizawa, as if to reminisce about her own childhood. About what she was like as a kid, what she did and where. About things happening or not happening. And as she talked, we comforted each other, both of us wanting our beloved village to stay in our hearts forever.
それでね、お母さんが子供の頃は、すっごく村のお年寄りに大事にしてもらったの。それはね、お母さんが、お社様の生まれ変わりって信じられてたからなのよ。
Ayo?
お社様の生まれ変わりって？
The numbers got moved up?
リカには話したことがなかったわね。フルデ家には古い言い伝えがあってね、第一子が8代続けて女の子だったら、その子はお社様の生まれ変わりであるって言い伝えがあるの。それがね、お母さんなの。
私じゃなくて。
リカも女の子で第一子だけど、9人目に当たるわね。
So wait, I don't remember. It was always 8, right? Or was it 9? But if it was always 8, did that mean that there was like another fucking child
うち
somewhere?
は女系なのかしら。お母さんが8人目。お社様の生まれ変わりなの。でも、これは内緒よ。誰にも言ってはいけないことになってるの。だからこのことを知っているのは、死んだおばあちゃんと私とリカだけ。お母さんとあなたとの秘密よ。
Or is that always how it's been? Huh? Sometimes as proof of trust between girls, they reveal secrets to one another. For my mother, this is probably a trivial secret that she could use for that reason. But for me, it was different. Hanyu was first able to appear before the 8th of 8 consecutive generations of girls, before Oyashiro-sama's reincarnation. But in this world, Rika Furude was not the 8th. She wasn't Oyashiro-sama's reincarnation. So, in this world, Hanyu couldn't appear before Rika Furude. And that was when, with my face buried in my mother's chest, I felt a warmth. No, a literal heat. Ha ha ha. Does she have a fever? No. This felt the same as Hanyu's power. Well, this was a secret. With my grandmother dead, there was only one who knew my mother was Oyashiro-sama's reincarnation, the woman herself. Which meant if my mother was gone, The fragment of there already being a reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama in this world would disappear. My warm tears ceased to flow, and I felt my eyes drying up as I plummeted to the bottom of the abyss of despair. It was her. Mom had the fragment in her. If I could have, I would have chosen never to remember what that fact entailed. Yeah, we gotta kill her. But I don't know if we can. We're growing too close to her in this world. Or we're allowing ourselves to, I guess, allow the other Rika Furude, the original here in this world, to kind of live her life while we're here, or some shit like that, I don't know. When I tried using the crystal ball with Yamamoto today, it still hadn't recovered enough for him to talk to Hanyu. Only half a day had passed, but maybe if I went to the storehouse, it would get through. Hanyu once told me the old air from the past had remained in the storehouse, and that she felt comfortable there. Maybe that meant the storehouse was filled with Hanyu's power. In other words, while the crystal ball didn't have quite enough power, maybe being in the storehouse would help a little. Late that night, I slipped out of bed and snuck into the storehouse. I wanted nothing more than to talk to Hanyu. I went to the altar before the holy vessel and spoke into the crystal ball.
聞こえる？羽生。
The light in the ball was feeble, but its otherworldly glow was clearly present. Please let her hear me. My wish was granted, and a quiet voice, so low it might disappear at any moment, spoke in answer.
聞こえますのですよ、リカ。羽生。よかった。聞いて。私。
Yeah, we solved this mystery, all right, Hanyu.
どうしていいかわかんないの。わかんない。
Well, maybe we solved it. This wasn't the time for crying. I needed to tell her everything I discovered and ask Hanyu's opinion. I quashed my frantic emotions and told her the fragment was in my mother. And what's the response? I was getting a swig of water expecting like a bit of a response or something, but alright. Hanyu stayed quiet for a few moments. She knew, of course, that I would have to kill my mother to return the fragment to the world of the gods.
納得よね。あんたは、お社様の生まれ変わりの前に姿を現す。
Honestly, there were some pretty public hints. Like, they weren't hidden anywhere. Like, people weren't really giving attention to Rika. Something that was in my mind was that, oh, maybe Oyashiro-sama isn't necessarily praised as much now, maybe, or something? I don't know.
この世界の私は、8代目じゃないから。あんたは、私の前に現れることができない。9代目はダメってことなの。大昔のことです。私ですら、ほとんど忘れてしまった。太古の昔。
It had happened when Hanyu was still living in Hinamizawa. Before Hanyu became Oyashiro-sama, it was how it all began, which Hanyu never told me about no matter how much I asked her.
僕が、いえ、私が神になろうと決めたとき、私の娘、リカのご先祖は、それをとても悲しみました。私がそう決めたのが、人の世に絶望したからだと知っていたからです。
I took all the sins of the human world upon me, for there was no other way to cleanse those sins other than to destroy the sinners themselves. People were forcing their sins on each other, an ugly existence. Their excessive cruelty caused me to lose hope in this world. I overtook all the sins of the human world and cleansed them by letting them kill me. I entrusted that final duty to my own daughter. I thought that unless I gave her that role, she would one day be despised as the daughter of a demon god and lose all hope in the human world itself. My daughter didn't like that role, but she understood that weight, or the weight of her mission, and in the end, she went through with it. But she said something to me, that she would change the human world, in which only the price of life could purify its sins. Humans would combine their strength and help each other, cooperating with mutual benefit in mind. She swore to me that she would create this utopia, which her mother had only dreamed of. Please, Mother, do not lose hope in the world of man. I swear that I shall heal that sadness. But I would become a god. I couldn't accept my daughter's feelings. No, actually, that wasn't it. I had already lost hope in the corrupted world of man, and I just didn't want to look at it anymore. But my daughter made a firm promise that she would remake that world into something better. Then I shall believe in what you feel. When in this land people live happily, aid one another, support one another, and think as one, I shall return to this land once more. My daughter killed me and took control of the village, the divine power of the demon god dwelling within her. She became their leader and created doctrines so that everyone would trust in and help one another, by making them to fear a curse where discordant hearts would revive the specter of the demon god. She led them strictly, not letting my purification go to waste, so that those purified sins would never again revisit the village. And so the village did regain a temporary peace, but I never descended to them again. I had rejected the human world much too strongly. But no matter how strong the power to reject, it can never last forever. Whether hearts, or walls, or lids, or doors, there is nothing that time will not decay. True that, homie. Even the powers shutting me away from the human world would not last forever. My daughter would learn the limits of that power through a revelation from a higher god than me. It was sad that when the 8 generations of Furude bore a girl as their first child, I would come again. I said sad, it said. The miracle of 8 consecutive firstborn girls would be the key that broke my power of rejection. My daughter left that legend to the Furude family, and it passed down to her descendants, so that this land would continue becoming my ideal.
だからリカ、あなたが8人目として生まれた時、僕は人の世との接点を再び持てたのです。確かに大昔は人の世を嫌って無視していました。でも誰とも交流できない1000年は私の悲しみを癒してもなおあまりある時間。いつしか私は誰とも交流できない世界にむしろ悲しみすら覚えるようになりました。私が拒んだつもりでいた1000年は実は私を閉ざす罰のような1000年でもあったのです。私は人の世を浅はかな気持ちで嫌い、絶望したことを悟りました。そして悟り始めた時、フルデ家に女子が続けて生まれ始めた。あなたの母が身ごもった時、それが女子であってほしいと私がどれだけ祈ったことか。
でしょうね。私が最初に見た顔は母じゃなくてあんただった気がするもの。
この1000年は人の世を見限った私に対する罪だったのかもしれません。人は人の世に生きる。そして生まれた世界に懸命でなくてはならない。それを軽んじ世界を容易に手放そうとする者は1000年にも及ぶ流罪に等しい罰を受けなければならないのかもしれません。
Hanyu's words were heavy. Maybe, having been carefree in our walk between countless worlds, even comparing our own lives to dice rolls, we had been sinful.
私は1000年ぶりの友人であり、娘であるあなたと人生を共にしました。そして昭和58年の袋小路にぶつかり、私は再び罪を犯しました。あなたの運命を変えるために力を使ったことです。
私たちは一番最初のあの世界で高野に腹を裂かれて死ぬ運命を受け入れるべきだったと言いたいの。
リカには残酷でしょうが、今の僕にはそう思います。僕は僕の生きる世界をないがしろにした。そしてリカの生きる世界までないがしろにしている。あなたと一緒の世界を懸命に生き、その最後を形にかかわらず歓迎すべきであった。
やめて。あんたは自虐によって心地いいかもしれないけど、私には不愉快だわ。あんな運命に屈服したくない。もっともっと素晴らしい人生のためにどこまでも戦っていこうって言って、あんたと 100年にも及ぶ旅路を共にしたはず。その果てにそんなことを言い出すなんてめちゃくちゃだわ。そんなのはあんたの干渉よ。そうしてあんたは私と共に築いてきたこの100年とその果てに掴んだ世界もないがしろにしようというのね。勝手な話じゃない。
死にゆく獣を助けて越に浸るのは人の罪です。
Now that's a beautiful look.
雪山は獣を殺し、その数を神に委ねます。
私が死ぬのも運命だったと今頃言い出すわけ。あんたどうかしてるわ。あんたがどう言おうと私たちの勝ち取った世界は汗の結晶のような世界よ。その輝きは私とあなたにしかわからないはず。そのあなたがあの世界を否定するの。
リカ、話を戻します。僕は8代目のあなたと一緒にこの世界を満喫したら、あなたの人生の終末と一緒に消え去るつもりでした。
But
あなたが生きているうちには関係ないことだから、あなたに話したことはありませんでした。その世界ではあなたの母が8代目、つまりすでに私は人の世と接点を持ち、素晴らしいひなみ沢に満足して、さらに上の世界へ消え去った後の世界なのです。
so wait, Hanyu can't just come back? Because she was like, okay, yep, everything's good here. I'm out. See you guys in another fucking 8 children.
私がもう消え去っている後の世界だから、そこに私は現れることができない。
So would actually killing her mother accomplish anything then?
でもそこにあんたの世界のかけらが紛れ込んでる。そしてそれが母にあった。つまりこういうことでしょう。母が8代目であることは母しか知らない。それを殺せばあんたが現れることができないという矛盾の力が消える。
Oh.
正解。
No, that makes sense.
そうです。本来ならリカのお母さんがその世界の8代目であることは歴然とした事実であり、お母さんを殺したからといって変わることではありません。ですが異なる世界から漂着したリカには、それは例えるなら船をつなぎ止めるもやいと同じ。その事実を知るのがお母さんだけで幸いでした。もし他にも大勢知る人がいたなら、リカはその全員を殺さなければならなかった。リカは元の世界に戻るために母を殺すべきか、この世界に留まるべきかを。
そうよ。
私もリカのいる世界がどういう世界かずっと調べていました。
Oh yeah?
そしてそこがどういう世界なのかを理解し、やがてこの日が訪れることを予想していました。悩んだリカが私に相談することも、そしてその結果を受けて世界を選ぼうとすることも予想していました。だから悩みました。あなたをどう導くべきかを。神の世の言葉と違い、人の世の言葉は狭い。どう言葉を選んでも意味が偏る。あなたに本当の意味で選んでもらうためにはどう言葉をかけるべきか、本当に悩みました。そして今も悩んでいます。なぜならあなたは私に答えを委ねているから。私がこっちの世界にせよと助言したなら、そちらを選ぶ気でいる。そのために払う代価の責任を私に転嫁しながら。それは卑劣なことだし、そんなことで選んだ人生に価値はない。あなたはあまたの世界を渡り歩き、人の世の外側に足跡を残した人間として責任ある選択をしなくてはならない。
Honestly, yeah, that's fair.
私に頼ることなく自分の力で。
言いたいことはわかるわ。あんたの言う通りにしたからこうなった。なんて責任転嫁されたらたまらないもんね。自分の人生は自分で決めろってことくらい理解できるわ。
I mean, Rika is literally the human here. She kind of has to make those those physical world-changing decisions.
伝えたかったのです。 私はリカと人生を一緒にできて幸せでした。そしてあまたの世界を共にし、ひなみざわが優しい助け合いに満ちていたことを知りました。私の欲しかった世界は全て満たされたのです。だからリカが私のいない世界を選び、僕がこのまま消えてしまっても幸せだと。
Hanyu had foreseen this, foreseen that this world would grow even warmer for me. But Hanyu herself was in opposition to this world. Any amount of discussing this with Hanyu, who was from the previous world, would only make it more difficult to forsake that one. She had even anticipated that after discussing it with her, I would need to make a decision from an impartial viewpoint. That is why she said it. She wanted to accept whatever fate Rika Furude's decision gave her. She didn't want me to worry about her, and live in the world that I liked the best.
仮にこの世界に生きることを選んだとして、
Hypothetically speaking,
あんたはどうなるの？
リカと僕の長い旅はその世界のルールで終焉します。つまりリカにはその世界での人生が、そして僕にはその世界ですでに終わってしまった事実が適用される。
つまりあんたは消えてしまうってことじゃない。
でもそれはとても心地よいことなのです。リカはそれを僕の死と考えるようですが、僕もその世界における自分は死んでいると最初はそう考えました。ですがその世界における羽生は消えてしまってはいますが、喜びに満ちているのです。あなたのお母さんと人生を共にして楽しい時間を過ごした。お母さんはまだ生きていますが、その世界の僕は優しさに包まれながら二度と目覚めぬまどろみの中で楽しい夢を見続けているのです。その温かさと心地よさはきっとこの世に生まれ入れる前の母の体内にも似ている。それを知ってしまったから僕はリカがむしろその世界を受け入れた方がいいとすら思っているのですよ。
あんた本気？
リカも1000年を生きてみればこの温かさを理解できるようになりますのですよ。
I could feel an ecstasy in Hanyu's words. Hanyu had lived for a millennium, and she understood that in a way I couldn't.
冗談じゃない。私は100歳程度の若造だから理解不能よ。
リカ、もういい加減に僕のことを理由に選択肢から逃れるのをやめにしませんか？
Kinda tough, you know, after all this fucking time. That was the truth. My old world and this one are being weighed on scales in my heart. It isn't tipping, even slightly toward either side. Trying to shift the responsibility for choosing onto Hanyu was just me being irresponsible.
リカの選択の助けになるよう、私の知るその世界の組成を全て話しましょう。まず私たちに運命が打ち破れることを何度も教えてくれる前原圭一。彼はこの世界では転校してきません。
He did not harm another child and therefore did not need to transfer
とっ
schools.
くに知ってるわ。クラスにいなかった。
圭一は一時期受験勉強のストレスから心を病みますが、元の世界のようにおもちゃの鉄砲で人を撃つような真似はしなかった。より心を強くしてその誘惑に耐え、ついに心の弱みを克服します。今の圭一は自らに胸を張れる強い意志を持った人間として待ち受ける受験に力強く臨もうとしています。
圭一の罪がないわけね。だから引っ越しもしない。
竜宮レナも両親の会社が潰れませんから茨城への引っ越しをしませんでした。だから離婚も起きない。だからそれを理由にレナが罪を感じることもない。
Rena had no sin either.
園崎ミオンと園崎シオンは背中に入れ墨を入れる儀式の日入れ替わりをしませんでした。
なるほど。学校のミオンが どことなく雰囲気が違うような気がしてた。
Mm.
ボードゲームが大好きなはずなのに、妹が詳しいなんて言い方をしてたし。なるほど。納得ね。
Yeah, I guess I completely overlooked that, like, very obvious hint.
だからミオンは当主跡継ぎの座を妹に押し付けることにならず、当主の修行をしながら日々を過ごしています。そしてシオンも本家の邪魔にならず、影から支えられるよう遠方の学園で一人今日も努力して頑張っています。
あの姉妹はかつて入れ墨の入れ替わりで互いに罪を感じ合っていた。それがないってことは。
Mion and Shion had no sin.
もうこれ以上話す必要もないでしょうが、北条聡子にも親殺しの罪がありません。聡子は義理の父との交流を深め、家族仲を再構築しました。そのため悪い病気に取りつかれることもなかった。
北条家も村と敵対せず、ひどい仕打ちも受けない。だから聡子には罪がない。いや、聡子たち一家にとってここは理想の世界ということね。
Well, yeah, they're basically all alive and healthy. For Sotoko and her family. Wait, no. Isn't this the ideal world for everybody? Yeah, it also helps that there's no Hinamizawa syndrome. Like, that's completely gone, which is probably what helped in a lot of these, situations. Obviously, Keiichi's situation is completely external, but think about it. Well, also maybe Rena's. But Mion and Shion never doing their tattoo swapping shit. Like, yeah, they had stress, sure, they were probably worried, but you could maybe argue that the syndrome, kind of pushed them into making a decision, which they did, in swapping like they had. Or for Sotoko to not, be cooperative whatsoever. Satoshi doesn't go batshit insane. I mean, there's all these, pluses when you think about it, because the syndrome isn't here. I would like to say that that's a factor here, because all these others are like, well, that's just insane luck. Keiichi came to Hinamizawa because he had committed a sin, but in this world he didn't, and was right now living his very best. Rena avoided her sad fate too and never sinned. She called herself by her given name Reina and was living happily. Mion and Shion were leading happy lives too. Without the tattoo incident, they were friendly sisters the way they had been born. They were forced to live apart due to family matters, but that wouldn't be enough to tear them apart. For Sotoko, this world was exactly the world of her dreams. Surrounded by the warmth of her family and big brother, she was leading a bright and healthy life. This is the world that I, as her friend, should be wishing for the most. For Satoshi, well, this was the only world in which he still existed. In all the worlds I had been to, this was the only one where he was alive. Satoshi couldn't exist anywhere but here. And Rika Furude? For Rika, this world was... Well, maybe I had 0 friends. Compared to my old world, that was very sad. But I could change that now through time and effort. Maybe I was sad Keiichi wasn't here, but Keiichi was living a resolute life in the place he originally lived. Instead, I had Satoshi. He wasn't the same as Keiichi, but he was very kind and considerate. Even the club I was disappointed didn't exist could start the very next day, if I wanted it to. With the Hojo siblings, Mio, Rena, and me. And maybe my other classmates too. What would the club be like with so many people? I didn't think I'd be able to compare it to the fun that we had with Keiichi and the rest. I knew I wouldn't be able to place one over the other. My parents were in this world, and I had already learned how to interact with them as Rika Furude, who had regained the love of her family. My parents weren't in the previous world, but I had lively roommates that wouldn't leave me feeling lonely. Sotoko and Hanyu. If I chose this world, I would have to say goodbye to Hanyu, the friend that I had spent 100 years with. Friend? No. If what Hanyu said was true, then she was my ancestor and a mother to me, which meant that she was on the exact same level as my father and mother. She was my family. My parents and Hanyu were both very important to me. I couldn't possibly weigh them against each other.
その世界は、誰かの夢が作り出したあなたに関わるすべての人間に罪がない。それは、とてもとても純粋で透き通った美しい世界なのです。その世界では、私はすでに消え去っており、
だから僕にも罪がない。そしてリカ、あなたも自らの人生を汚していないから罪がない。
Oh, but we will if we decide to kill our mother.
あの高野にすら罪がない。誰から誰まで罪がない真っ白な世界。
Yeah, I'm sure Takano, I'm sure her parents are alive and well. It's like what we saw at the end of chapter 8, you know? As if everything just worked out perfectly fine. There was no tragedy for any of our characters.
そうです。今のリカはその世界を選ぶことができます。これは僕にも預かり知れない運命のサイコロの神様が100年の旅の果てにくださった貴重な機会なのかもしれません。もう少し慈悲深い与え方だったらよかったのにね。ですからその神様は元の世界へ戻る道も与えてくれました。
Yeah, by committing the gravest sin of matricide, you can choose to release yourself from the sinless paradise.
羽生、あんたは娘に撃たれたって言ってたわね。私が自分の人生を選ぶために母殺しを繰り返すことをどう思うの？
Oh shit, yeah, that's like,
リカ
wow,
のお母
alright.
さんなら
I didn't
こう
think of
言うで
that.
しょ。
Whoa.
娘が幸せになれるなら自分の命など惜しくないとリカにはまだわかりません。子を持ち母となった身にしかわからぬ気持ちです。かつて一度は母になったからわかる。もしリカが元の世界の方が幸せだったと言えるなら、リカのお母さんは喜んでその命を差し出すでしょう。
Or she'll be the insane, annoying bitch that she was back in the other world and not be happy about that.
まさか。
Or, you know, a normal person, you know, wouldn't really be happy about this, oh, you want to go to your original world and you have to kill me to do it? Well, I guess.
あの人に限ってそんなこと言うわけないでしょ。
But then again, I'm pretty sure she actually, like, saw Hanyu and, like, witnessed the supernatural, so... Yeah, maybe.
頭は大丈夫って言われてヒステリックに叫ばれるだけよ。
That's what I'm saying. But then I remembered my mother's smile when we made curry together. Would it be so strange if such fearsome words came from her mouth?
僕は娘に撃たれたことを後悔していません。そのおかげで娘に引き継がれたかもしれない罪が払われたのです。私が命を惜しんでいたら娘もまた私と同じように迫害されていたかもしれないのですから。でもあんたを撃った娘の気持ちを考えたことはある？死んだ方は気楽よね。勝手に献身美徳によって成仏できる。でもね、殺した方はその十字架を背負ってずっと生きていくのよ。あんたさっき言わなかった？あんたを撃った娘があんたのために助け合いの心の宿るhinamizawaを作ると誓ったって。そして1000年かけてあんたの娘たちはあんたの罪に付き合ったのよ。あんたは死ぬべきじゃなかったんじゃない？何の罪を背負わされたのか知らないけど生きて戦うべきだった。子孫が罪を背負わずに済むように戦うべきだった。なのにあんたが屈したから1000年もの間あんたの子孫たちがあんたの十字架を背負い続けた。そうじゃないの？
Hanyu was silent. That, without a doubt, was Hanyu's sin. It was easy to die for her daughter's sake, but her daughter's guilt would never heal. But when Hanyu answered, she remained undaunted.
ならリカ、
Uh-oh.
私は生きて戦うべきだったというリカ。あなたはその世界にいる今、どうするというのですか？その世界にいるという現実を受け入れ、元の世界と異なるいくつかの違和感と戦いながら、100年の果てに掴んだ、手垢と汗にまみれた、それでもなお美しい、あの世界を見捨てて。
She was right. Maybe this world was beautiful, but that didn't mean that the way my old world shone wasn't beautiful too. Why wouldn't it be? We had won that fate after such a long journey.
そしてあなたは100年の末に掴んだあの世界を元の世界と今なお呼ぶなら、この世界の居心地がどんなに良くてもそれを全て投げ捨ててこの世界にとどまりたい気持ちを打ち払って戦ってでも元の世界へ帰るべきなのではないですか。あなたに関わる人々が罪から解放されたこの世界を打ち壊してでも。
My daughter who tells me to fight, you too should fight. To fight is not to defeat and overcome the obstacles before you. In the end, that is no more than a simple detour on the straight path before you. To truly fight is to make your own choices. At every choice in life, at every crossroads, people hesitate. Having one choice brightly illuminated and then selecting it, such a predetermined choice is not a fight. When no matter how many times you are presented with the choice, you choose the same one, it's inevitability. A real choice is when you truly think and worry, when you never know which you should choose. It is precisely the same as the choice between the red box and the blue box you spoke of once before. Will you choose the red box or the blue? To choose without guidance demands incredible courage and determination. That is a true choice. If you knew what was in the boxes, it would no longer be a choice. It is because you do not know what is inside that you can be satisfied with what it is in the box you choose. If you knew the contents of the other, it could lead to despair. I remember that one. Being left at a crossroads with no guidance and no hints is what it means to live. You may lazily continue to choose the right, or knock over the sign and choose at random. You may also search carefully for hints, worrying over how beneficial the left or right would be, and remain at the crossroads forever. Thus, you would be able to accept the final result awaiting you as your own responsibility, would you not? You would not grow old and go into your coffin wanting advice from your parents, would you? Worry, choose, and go forward. That is the fight. I earnestly worried and chose my own life. My daughters earnestly worried and chose their own lives. For each and every one of us, that is sacred. It is precious. The descendant 1,000 years later must not sully that. All who lived in that age were always beautiful. You must not speak of their lives using the values of later generations.
最後にとても重要なことを話しますです。
Uh-oh.
リカと僕をつなぐそのカモの御事のりの力はもうじきその力を永遠に失います。
I sort of assume that.
僕がその世界に干渉することは永遠にありません。
あんたにありがたい説教をもらうのも今夜限りってわけね。
それからもう一つ。
Oh my god.
リカのお母さんに現れたかけらは明日の日没と同時
Jesus
に
Christ.
そ
What
の
the fuck are
力
all
を
these
永遠
like...
に失います。
This is all very sudden. Where are these like conditions coming from?
失うのは消えるという意味じゃない。リカの手でかけらを取り戻せる機会が永遠に失われるという意味です。
I guess it's more like once we lose contact with Hanyu, killing our own mother to free the fragment will no longer do anything. We no longer have that connection with Hanyu. The choice has been made. Even if we do the deed, that's it. I mean, fragment or not, it has no meaning anymore.
つまり
Or it won't do anything
明日の
anymore.
夕方までに決断しなくちゃ元の世界に戻るという選択肢もなくなるってことね。選択を保留するという第三の選択肢はないってことか。
いいえ、選択を逃げ最後の時間にわざと目をつむり消極的にその世界にとどまる道を選ぶこともできます。その場合は積極的に選んだ場合と違った生き方になるでしょうが。
Whether or not I chose proactively was also whether or not I would accept this world. If I continued to live here without accepting it, I would drag along all the distress that I currently held forever. Compared to that, maybe it would be a lot better just to choose one or the other. But even that wasn't easy. Hanyu had said that very distress itself was the battle.
さあ、リカ、戦いなさい。その戦いは明日の日没まで続く。でも、どうか逃げないで。なぜなら、 どちらの世界を決断したとしても、その世界は必ず素晴らしいものだから。あの100年を戦い抜き、得た世界が素晴らしかったように、戦い抜いて選んだ世界は必ず素晴らしくなる。だからリカ、決して戦わぬことで片方を選ばぬように。悩まぬ選択肢の結果に人間が満足することは絶対にないのだから。
ありがとう。羽生、私、戦ってみるわ。この、選択と、もし、あなたと再会できるなら、元の世界で。もし、この世界だったなら、ゆっくりと休んで、1000年の疲れを癒して、今日までありがとう。本当にありがとう。私、あなたの力のおかげで、自分の人生を何度でもやり直せるものだと勘違いしてきた。そんな私じゃ、きっと元の世界に生きても、どっかでおかしくなったと思う。何かにちょっとでもつまずいたら、やり直せばいいやって、簡単に考えたと思う。そんなんじゃ、素晴らしい世界になんて、なるわけないよね。その意味では、あなたがこの力を私に使わなければよかったという罪も、でも、それは軽い人生を歩んできた私の罪でもある。あまたの世界でサイコロを振り直すと称して自分の命を粗末にしたこの世界は、そんな私に人生の重さを教えてくれたんだと思う。その末がどっちに転んでも素敵な世界だなんて、本当にラッキーじゃない。
But also remember this. It is so much easier to give up rather than to fight. I mean, a lot of people are going to have more motivation, over time, depending on the circumstances. But I'm sure in Rika's, it was easy to give up, to see life in such a grim way like she did. Like what was actually finally revealed to us in Chapter 7. Because, yeah, that was fucking grim. That was a little disappointing. It was crazy that that's what was really going on, and we got to finally get that reveal. But at the same time, yeah, it's exactly as she said. It wasn't right to see that her life in that sort of way.
私は多分、あまたの世界で一番幸運な人間に違いないわ。ありがとう。羽生、こんなバカで身の程知らずの私に最後の最後まで温かな言葉をかけてくれて、私一生懸命悩むよ。いっぱいいっぱい悩んで、本当に本当に素敵な世界をつかみ取るから。だから、ありがとう。羽生。ねえ、返事してよ。
The crystal ball was now quiet and cold in my hands, and gave off only a dull reflection of the flashlight that illuminated me. I shed all the tears I could. I thought if I didn't, I would hesitate when it came time to choose, so I cried out everything I had, and I thanked her for our 100-year relationship, because depending on my choice, I might never get to say those words again. Then I replaced the crystal ball on the altar, where it was now just a marble slipped out of the storehouse, and crawled back into bed. There was no way I was going to sleep. At least, that was what I thought until I wrapped myself in linens, felt the cool wind on my bare feet, and drifted off to sleep without realizing it. Now, if we do get a choice, I'm just gonna let you guys know I'm all for the original world. Fuck this shit. Rika Furude was going to sleep. I was going to sleep. Good night, everyone. Good night, me. Interesting. Very interesting. And the sun rose again on another wonderful day for Rika Furude. Yeah, we'll see what's going on there in the next episode, I guess. But now I was just gonna throw out there, the reason why I'm all for the original world is because, yeah, we fucking fought for that shit. 100% we freaking fought for that. So, yeah, we got to go back to that. And I don't really understand this whole world system that's like other, timelines, or if it is like a multiverse sort of thing. I don't know, but this will always, in my opinion, even if Rika decides to go for this world, this will never be her true world, where she came from. And I guess you can argue that with where she actually did come from. But that's the one where she finally found her success, her victory. That is her world now. That is. And if she can get back to it or something like it, that, in my opinion, is what is correct. And plus, she's the 8th. She's got Hanyu. She's the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama. Fuck this other weird-ass shit, honestly. But another thing that I want to bring up, and I'm not going to state what the game is, but if you guys played it, then you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. There's a game that I recently played that had a very interesting section, kind of like this, where the world was flipped upside down. Everybody was happier. There was no tragedy. There were no terrible events and everything. And at the same time, it wasn't right. It was a beautiful world for all of these characters that we got to know of for the entirety of the story, but then they were given the opportunity for all of their wishes to basically be fulfilled, for all of the tough events that basically created permanent roadblocks in their lives. They were gone. They got to actually fulfill their lives' wishes as they wished, or as they wanted to, or whatever. In the end, you do get a choice whether to go back as, a group, or to stay as is and accept what is quite literally a false world, because we know how things are supposed to be, and that interpretation will never change. Never, never, never. I think that difficulties and unfortunate circumstances shape our lives in such ways that change us and morph us into people that can never be replicated in a truly perfect world. So here, all these characters, as happy as they are, Keiichi is not Keiichi. This Keiichi that's out there, doing good things, not being here in the village, that is not Keiichi. That is a completely different person. Mion and Shion are quite literally not in their correct roles. Rena, while it is great that things happened the way that they did, Rena is also not Rena. She seems like Rena, caring and all, but somewhere deep down, she doesn't have those experiences and events that make Rena who she is. So this and that kind of tell you, while these people do seem very similar, they are not. And I keep on bringing that up in the intros because that is the truth, and that will always be that way in this upside down world. It's how I feel. I guess we'll see what comes up in the next episode. I feel like this next episode will wrap up this chapter. So I don't know how much more we have to go, but I am ending this episode here. I guess we'll see how much more we have left. If it's not too much more, the next episode, I guess we'll just jump into the next chapter too. I don't see why not. So stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this episode though, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz, and I will see you all in the next one. Take it easy.